When the cameras cut to the Browns sideline, it looked like a clip made for instant outrage. A veteran receiver storming at a rookie quarterback, teammates stepping in, and the whole thing blowing up across social feeds. But this wasn't just another angry shout caught on tape. It was a moment that exposed a dozen pressure points at once. Roster choices, coaching decisions, social media spillover, and a rookie trying to grow up under a microscope. Dillon Gabriel's benching, despite being cleared to play, Jerry Jeudy's public frustration, and Shedeur Sanders' calm posture all collided into a single viral narrative. Fans saw the optics and filled in the gaps. Analysts pulled up stat lines and past mistakes, and suddenly, what should have been an internal conversation became a national talking point. Add a Fiance firing off comments online and accusations flying in the replies, and you've got a stew of emotion. But here's the thing. The clip didn't create the story. It revealed it. It exposed how a team's indecision, a coach's play calling, and repeated questions about effort can turn an on-field moment into a reputational turning point. And more than anything, it showed who looked like he belonged under pressure and who looked like he was running out of room to hide. I'll unpack what the cameras actually showed, why Gabriel stayed benched, how the social media angle changed the conversation, and what this all means for the Browns locker room. The moment the broadcast cameras swung toward the Browns sideline, you could almost feel the tension crackle through the screen. Jerry Jeudy wasn't just expressing frustration. He was charging toward Shedeur Sanders with the kind of intensity that makes teammates' heads snap around instantly. He was ready for a full confrontation, and right next to him was Shedeur, sitting on the bench with a tablet in his hands, trying to dissect the last series. That contrast alone is what made the clip explode. One player losing his cool, and the other refusing to give it away. The cameras caught Jeudy leaning in, pointing, clearly heated about a missed connection on the previous drive. But watch Sanders closely. His eyes barely leave the screen. He stays focused on the play he's reviewing, not the argument unfolding inches from his face. No pushback, no visible annoyance, no match to Jeudy's energy. Just composure. The kind you usually see from someone who's been in the league for years, not months. And that calmness didn't go unnoticed. Social media lit up immediately with people calling it leadership, poise, and the most mature moment on the Browns sideline all season. But the moment that really told the story wasn't even the players around them. Multiple teammates, including linemen, stepped in without hesitation. Not to support Jeudy, not to tell Sanders to calm down, but to physically move Jeudy away from the quarterback. That doesn't happen unless the entire unit sees the line being crossed. Offensive linemen live by one code: protect the quarterback at all costs. And in that moment, they didn't just protect Sanders physically. They protected the structure of the team. The clip spread fast because it felt symbolic. A veteran melting down, a rookie staying cool, teammates choosing sides without saying a word. It wasn't the argument that mattered. It was everything hiding under it, and it made people wonder what else was brewing behind the scenes. If the sideline blow-up raised eyebrows, the quarterback situation in Cleveland practically ripped them off. The confusion didn't start with Jeudy yelling. It started 2 weeks early. Gabriel disappeared from the lineup with a concussion. Fair enough. Protocol is protocol. But here's where the story takes a sharp turn. Gabriel was medically cleared to return, and still never stepped back onto the field. No limited snaps, no easing in, not even a quick series to shake the rust. He remained glued to the bench while Shedeur Sanders took every meaningful snap. And that raised one massive question: why? On paper, Gabriel was supposed to be the safe option, the guy the coaching staff trusted. But after that infamous game where he threw the ball 52 times, yes, 52, and looked overwhelmed on almost every drive, the narrative changed. What was meant to be his prove-it performance turned into a full-blown indictment. The offense stalled, the reads were late, the timing was off, And analysts, fans, and even some former players openly questioned why the staff kept forcing the Gabriel experiment when the results were so. So once he was cleared, everyone expected the controversy to kick right back up, except it didn't. Instead, Sanders continued starting, and Gabriel stayed benched without explanation. No injury designation, no strategic reasoning, nothing that made sense from the outside. And that silence is what made people suspicious. Some suggested the front office was quietly backing away from a bad investment. Others floated theories about internal disagreements between coaches. And then there were the social media rumors, the ones accusing the staff of trying to protect Gabriel from backlash or protect Sanders from unfair pressure. None confirmed, but all loud enough to shape the narrative. What became clear was this: the decision wasn't just about football. It was about optics, politics, and a franchise terrified of admitting another mistake at the quarterback position. And the more the team avoided explaining the move, the more fans felt like they were watching a cover-up instead of a competition. If the sideline blow-up raised eyebrows, the quarterback situation in Cleveland practically ripped them off. The confusion didn't start with Judy yelling. It started 2 weeks earlier, when Dillon Gabriel disappeared from the lineup with a concussion. Fair enough, protocol is protocol. But here's where the story takes a sharp turn. Gabriel was medically cleared to return and still never stepped back onto the field. No limited snaps, no easing in, not even a quick series to shake the rust. He remained glued to the bench while Shedeur Sanders took every meaningful snap. And that raised one massive question. Why? On paper, Gabriel was supposed to be the safe option, the guy the coaching staff trusted. But after that overwhelmed on almost every drive, the narrative changed. What was meant to be his prove-it performance turned into a full-blown indictment. The offense stalled, the reads were late, the timing was off, and analysts, fans, and even some former players openly questioned why the staff kept forcing the Gabriel experiment when the results were so painfully obvious. So once he was cleared, everyone expected the controversy to kick right back up, except it didn't. Instead, Sanders continued starting, and Gabriel stayed benched without explanation. No injury designation, no strategic reasoning, nothing that made sense from the outside. And that silence is what made people suspicious. Some suggested the front office was quietly backing away from a bad investment. Others floated theories about internal disagreements between coaches. And then there were the social media rumors, the ones accusing the staff of trying to protect Gabriel from backlash or protect Sanders from unfair pressure. None confirmed, but all loud enough to shape the narrative. What became clear was this: the decision wasn't just about football. It was about optics, politics, and a franchise terrified of admitting another mistake at the quarterback position. And the more the team avoided explaining the move, the more fans felt like they were watching a cover-up instead of a competition. Just when things were already messy, the situation detonated in a place no NFL team ever wants to see drama unfold: the comments section of social media. Dillon Gabriel staying benched was already raising questions, but everything exploded when his fiance, Zoe Caswell, decided she wasn't staying silent. Instead, she stepped right into the public conversation, and within hours, the entire storyline took on a life of its own. It started with what seemed like a simple defense. She claimed that everyone in the building wants Dillon to play. A bold statement, one that instantly clashed with what fans, analysts, and even former players had been seeing on the field. Suddenly, her comment wasn't just an opinion. It became a headline. People started asking, who is everyone? Coaches? Staff? Players? Because if you looked at the locker room dynamic, nothing suggested this was the universal sentiment she was describing. And that's where the floodgates opened. In the replies, accusations flew. Some users accused her of being out of touch. Others went further, throwing around claims of racial bias. Serious allegations that had no verification, but spread like wildfire simply because the drama was already so hot. The conversation stopped being about football. Caswell fired back, saying critics never played in the NFL and didn't understand how things worked. But that only added fuel, because fans weren't questioning her resume, they were questioning why a fiancé was speaking for the franchise, the locker room, and the coaching staff in the middle of a quarterback controversy. And here's the part that made everything worse. Once outside voices jump in, the team loses control of the story. The narrative stops belonging to the Browns and starts belonging to TikTok threads, Reddit posts, and whoever comments the loudest. Suddenly, unverified claims sound like truths, and frustrations start getting aimed in every direction, especially towards Shedeur Sanders, who didn't even respond publicly but still ended up in the center of the crossfire. This wasn't just noise. It reshaped the public perception of the quarterback battle entirely, and the organization felt the impact immediately. While the social media chaos kept spiraling, Jerry Jeudy added another layer to the Browns' drama. One that had nothing to do with TikTok comments, and everything to do with effort, execution, and accountability. Because Jeudy didn't just argue with Shedeur Sanders on the sideline. That moment was the result of weeks of growing tension, and fans had already been noticing signs long before the cameras captured that blow-up. Critics and analysts started pointing out a pattern: routes being run at half speed, balls that looked catchable slipping away, and the now infamous play where Jeudy appeared to slow down mid-route while Sanders dropped a perfect throw into the exact window he should have attacked. Viewers replayed that clip frame by frame, highlighting how Jeudy never raised his arms, never extended, never even attempted a late reach. To many, it looked less like miscommunication and more like a receiver checking out of a live play. Something no quarterback can compensate for. Then there was the fumble from the week before, the one where Jeudy seemed more focused on style than securing the ball, only to lose it at the worst possible moment. Fans gave him the benefit of the doubt at first, calling it an isolated mistake. But when the next game featured another questionable effort, followed by a sideline confrontation, patience vanished. And here's what made the entire situation sting even deeper. While Jeudy was publicly displaying frustration, Sanders kept taking responsibility. When asked about the failed route, Sanders didn't blame Jeudy. He blamed himself, chalking it up to timing and chemistry. That maturity only emphasized the growing difference between the two players. One was handling adversity with composure. The other was letting emotions spill over on national television. To the outside world, it became painfully clear. Jeudy wasn't just mad about targets. He was ... directing his frustration at the wrong person. And the more fans watched the tape, the more they felt Jeudy's anger didn't match his output. This wasn't a one-time flare-up. It was a pattern finally catching up to him. If the on-field tension wasn't enough, the Browns layered on a whole new problem: coaching decisions that seemed to work against their own quarterback. Fans were already confused by Dillon Gabriel being cleared but benched. But once Shedeur Sanders took over full-time, the play calling became the real villain in the story. And the more people watched, the more obvious it became. The offense wasn't built to help Sanders succeed. It was built to prevent mistakes. Drive after drive looked the same: safe throws, checkdowns, predictable formations, third and long screens that fooled absolutely no one. Sanders wasn't being asked to play quarterback. He was being asked to manage chaos. And whilst treatment early on, What made this situation different was how drastically it contrasted with how the staff treated Gabriel. When Gabriel played, they let him rip it. Deep shots, high-risk attempts, 52 passes in one game. It was reckless, sure, but it showed trust. That trust disappeared the second Sanders stepped on the field. And that's where Jerry Jeudy's frustration, misdirected as it was, actually tied back to coaching. Because if the staff refuses to call plays that send the ball downfield, then Jeudy can run the cleanest post route of his life and still never see the pass. Sanders isn't ignoring him. He's following orders. The headset tells him where the ball goes. A rookie QB trying to cement his position isn't freelancing. But instead of addressing the scheme, instead of adjusting the playbook to match Sanders' strengths, the coaches doubled down on conservatism. And that created a subtle but powerful point. Message in the locker room: the staff doesn't trust the quarterback. That perception spreads quickly. Receivers get frustrated. Fans get confused. Media starts poking dangerous questions. Suddenly, even Sanders' post-game interviews are being dissected like scandals. The irony? Through all this, Sanders kept protecting the coaches publicly, even when they didn't protect him with their decisions. This wasn't just bad play calling. It was a structural failure that made every other problem look bigger. In the middle of all this chaos, the sideline argument, the social media fireworks, the questionable play calling, one person consistently kept the Browns from completely imploding: Shedeur Sanders. And what stood out most wasn't a spectacular throw or a highlight play. It was the way he handled everything happening around him with a level of calm most veterans struggle to maintain. When Jeudy stormed at him on the sideline, Sanders didn't flinch. He didn't jump up, didn't match the energy, didn't snap back. He kept reviewing the tablet, kept his tone steady, and refused to add gasoline to an already burning moment. That composure wasn't an accident. It's who he's been since college. A quarterback who plays with confidence but never lets emotion cloud his decisions. Then came the post-game interview, the one that could have easily turned ugly. Reporters tried to bait him into calling out the coaching staff. They asked loaded questions, trying to get him to criticize the failed fourth down calls or the offensive strategy. But he didn't bite. Instead, he said the question itself was rude, redirected the conversation, and protected the people coaching him, even though those same people weren't always putting him in the best position to succeed. And fans noticed. They saw a rookie who didn't blame others, even when it would have been justified. They saw a young quarterback owning the stakes that weren't his fault, lifting up teammates who weren't lifting him back, and navigating messy locker room politics with the kind of maturity you can't coach. While others cracked under pressure, Sanders became the steady voice in a storm. That quiet confidence changed the tone inside the locker room. Some players started gravitating toward him. Others began seeing him differently, not just as a rookie filling in, but as someone who might actually be worth building around. And perhaps the biggest shift of all, people outside the organization began asking why the Browns weren't giving him more support. By the time the clip had made its rounds online and the debates were raging, something more important was happening where the cameras couldn't see it. Inside the Browns locker room. NFL teams don't usually make public statements about internal conflict, but you can always feel where the energy shifts. And in Cleveland, it shifted fast. Players talk, they replay the moments, they watch the tape. They notice who owns their mistakes and who deflects them. They notice who keeps their cool and who loses it. And as the weeks passed, the contrast between Shedeur Sanders and Jerry Jeudy became too glaring to ignore. Multiple teammates, especially the offensive linemen, stepping in to pull Jeudy away on the sideline, spoke volumes. These are the players whose entire job is to protect the quarterback. When they decide someone is out of line, The rest of the team takes note. In NFL locker rooms, those silent signals matter more than any press conference quote. Then there's the social media chaos surrounding Gabriel's situation. Even if the allegations, theories, and comments were exaggerated or flat out wrong, the noise they created still landed. In the locker room, and players hate distractions, especially ones caused by someone who isn't even playing. Rumors suggesting the team preferred Gabriel didn't match what teammates were saying publicly about Sanders' leadership, huddle control, or work ethic. When those two narratives collide, players naturally side with what they see every day, not what someone's fiance posts online. Meanwhile, Sanders earned respect the old-fashioned way, by showing up, by taking hits, getting up, admitting mistakes, and refusing to throw anyone else under the bus, even when the situation practically begged him to. That kind of consistency builds trust quickly, and trust is the currency of the NFL. On the flip side, Judy's visible frustration, inconsistent effort, and sideline outburst began to wear thin. Not because players hate emotion, they understand passion. But because emotion becomes a problem, by this point, it wasn't explicit. No speeches, no declarations. But the team's body language, reactions, and interactions all pointed in one direction. The Browns were starting to quietly rally behind Shedeur Sanders and quietly lose faith in the people causing the most noise. When you zoom out and look at everything that unfolded, the sideline meltdown, the bizarre QB situation, the fiance stepping into the spotlight, the accusations flying online, and the strained locker room energy, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. The Cleveland Browns are standing at a crossroads, and somehow, the calmest person in the entire mess is the rookie who was never supposed to carry this much weight. Shedeur Sanders didn't choose the drama. He didn't spark it. He didn't fuel it. But he handled it better than players with twice his experience and 10 times his benching created confusion, and Judy's frustration created chaos. Sanders created stability. When the conversation got loud, he stayed unbothered. When the questions turned unfair, he stayed respectful. And when players around him made mistakes, he covered for them instead of exposing them. That's leadership, the real kind. Not the kind you talk about in interviews or hype videos. And the Browns desperately need it. Because the truth is, this franchise has spent decades cycling through quarterbacks, searching for someone who could provide that exact center of gravity. Maybe Shedeur isn't the final answer. Maybe he still has growing to do. But what he's shown in the middle of this storm is something every great quarterback must have. The ability to steady a team when everything else is shaking apart. As for the rest of the drama, the team has decisions to make. The Gabriel situation can't linger. Forever. The coaching staff can't keep handcuffing their quarterback with ultra-conservative play calling, and Judy's frustration won't magically disappear unless accountability finally enters the conversation. The Browns can either commit to a direction, one that gives Sanders a fair evaluation, a real playbook, and a stable environment, or continue letting drama define them. But if this season has revealed anything, it's that the guy wearing the rookie tag might just be the one adult in the room. And now the pressure shifts back to Cleveland. Will they build around the quarterback who's already acting like a leader, or keep clinging to a messy quarterback debate that's dragging the entire franchise down?